Hello, I'm Paddy, and I'm hoping today that I can save you a lot of time with some tedious web tasks on content management systems and such like. Here's an example of something I wish I'd known this technique for back when I did it. We had this long list of checkboxes, and we had to make sure that the right set of boxes were ticked. Some needed to be ticked that weren't ticked, and others needed to be unticked, which were already ticked. And it wasn't just on one page or even 10 or 100 pages. We had well over 3,000 of these to go through. And I worked out a slightly better way of doing it than just opening every single page, scrolling down it and clicking on them. But it did take quite a bit of time. So how can I save myself time doing this? On most pages and in most browsers, if you right click on an element like this review status tick box, I can click inspect, and it will bring up the developer tools, and you'll be able to see the code associated with that particular tick box, including something called the ID. This one is ID available 183. And then if you went into the console, which is a JavaScript programming area in the developer tools, you could type in a command like document get element by ID, open brackets, put in the ID, and then click a dot, and then a click, then open brackets, close brackets, and that. And that command, it says undefined, but what that's done is clicked that particular element. In theory, if I did that for all those different boxes that I needed to tick and pasted that in for each page, that would save me having to scroll down the page and click on each of those things. But the obvious problem is, if they were already ticked, then I'd have unticked them, and that would be something I didn't want to do. So I'd have to write a bit more code to check whether the box was ticked already, and if it wasn't, then I should tick it, and if it was, then I shouldn't tick it. If I'd written all that code and pasted it into each page, that would have done the job, but it would have actually been slower than just going through the page and ticking those boxes. And this is where bookmarklets come in. It's a bit like a bookmark, and it's a bit like an applet, like a miniature application. And I have written a page called the bookmarklet generator to help save you a massive time. So part of this bookmarklet generator is the sandbox page. Here's an example page where you can try out bookmarklet techniques before actually using them on your live site and possibly making a big mess of things. So let's imagine I wanted to tick every other box and then untick. So I want to untick boxes 2, 4, and 6 and tick boxes 1, 3, and 5. And then I want to click on these boxes, just boxes 2, 4, and 6. And then I want to click a submit button, which might do something like saving the page. Could I do that very quickly? Well, yes, I can. Each of these has an ID, like I mentioned, and I can right-click on this box, go to inspect. It might be called inspect element on your browser, and I can see here the ID is box 1. And what my bookmarklet generator is going to do is create the code I just demonstrated for you, and you won't have to think about writing JavaScript at all, which is a good thing, I think, unless you really love writing JavaScript. And the same with these. These have got IDs DB1, 3, 5, 6, 4, 2. And this has an ID submit button. You won't usually see this on the screen. I've just put it here to make it easier for you. So, back to the bookmarklet generator. Firstly, I want to put in this top box a list of the IDs of the boxes I do want to be ticked. So that is box 1, box 3, and box 5. And then a list of the ones I want to be unticked, which is box 2, box 4, box 6. If I left out box 6, then the bookmarklet would just entirely ignore it and wouldn't tick on it or untick it. It would just leave it how it was already. Right, there's other things I want to tick. Those are those DB boxes. DB stands for dull box because they're grey boxes. We'll see what happens when we click on them. So DB1, DB3, DB5. Let's click on those. And lastly, there's a submit button. And the ID of submit button is submit_button. That's nice and easy. Submit button Now here's an interesting thing. Seconds to wait. Sometimes when you click on things on a content management system, things take a little while to happen. They don't happen instantly. So if I click on the submit button straight away, sometimes some of these other things I've ticked on might not have happened before I save. So I'll have to go back and check everything that I've done, which is like rather the opposite of what we're doing here, trying to save time. So I'm going to put in a long gap of 2 seconds, because then we can easily see that it's actually worked. And now I can create the bookmarklet, and I hope this will all make sense. Here is the code that it's actually created. But all you need to do is drag this link, your bookmarklet, up to your bookmarks bar. And this will look just like all the rest of your bookmarks. But unlike the other bookmarks which just open a web page, your bookmark, or your bookmarklet, will run some code instead. You can edit the bookmarklet and give it a new name. I'm going to call it Sandbox Demo. And here, instead of a URL, you can see all this code, which starting with, instead of HTTPS, it starts with JavaScript. I'll save that. Now let's try it out. So I'm going to go over to the Sandbox page again and click on Sandbox Demo. So what are we expecting? We're expecting boxes 1, 3, and 5 to be ticked, boxes 2, 4, and 6 to be unticked. DB1, DB3, DB5 should be clicked on, and then after 2 seconds, submit button should be clicked, and that will show us a message. Right, let's try it. I'm going to press the bookmarklet now. Look at that. So 1, 3, 5 selected, 2, 4, 6 unselected. I don't know if you saw that something happened when you pressed the button. I wasn't really looking, but I think it did. These boxes 1, 3, and 5 have subtly changed colour. I'm going to run the Sandbox demo again. In fact, no, I'm going to reset the page first, and then run it again and see if it works second time. Yes, it did. And yeah, there's a button being pressed after 2 seconds. And again, these have turned to a different colour. These buttons here, these boxes, just go to a random colour whenever you click them. So the fact they've turned to a different colour means they've been clicked. If you imagine that you had to do this set of operations, ticking every other box, ticking 3 of these, ticking save, many times a day, doing it just with a single click is quite a time-saving thing. And not just time, but fatigue. You're just having to click lots of different things. So what have we saved? We saved up to 6 clicks there, unticking and ticking things. 3 clicks there, that's 9. 10, so that's turned 10 clicks into 1 click. And can you do some advanced things? Well, yes, my tool doesn't actually do the advanced things, but I've given you some tips at the bottom of how to do them. So you can click on things that don't actually have an ID. They might have a class or a name, and you can use this code here and add that to this code that it's generating for you. You can get it to type things into boxes. Again, my bookmarklet maker at the top doesn't let you do that, but you can add your own code manually, and it all explains how to do it and how to make it work. And you can do that delay thing as well, which I did for that submit button. There are some things bookmarklets can't do, such as doing operations on a sequence of pages. They'll only work on the page you're on. One way around that would be to do a second bookmarklet to use on the second page that opens. Oh, there's a rather good free tool called AutoHotkey, which enables you to program the computer to do a series of operations. I've programmed a simple one which clicks with the mouse on the bookmarklet location, which I always have on the top left corner, and then it switches to the next browser tab, clicks on it again, switches to the next one, clicks on it again, and I can make a loop of those, so I could, do 20 or 30 tabs just with a single key press. So it's worth having a look at AutoHotkey. Well, thanks for watching. I hope this saves you a lot of time. if you find it super useful and you want to say thanks, there's a donations section at the bottom here, and some adverts on the top. If you just want to click on an advert, I might earn a few pennies from that. So yeah, go away and save yourself some time.